How much do you know about Liberia other than it's in Africa? One of my guests has an amazing story about escaping from that country as a 16-year-old and her work in New York and Africa. If you live in Crown Heights, East Flatbush, or in the neighborhoods of Wingate or Lefferts Gardens, you've probably been getting mail already from candidates running for the state assembly seat that was vacated by Kareem Kamara. I'll be chatting with one of these candidates in this program. Wet wipes, you probably use them every day or every week. They are a necessity, but they can create problems as well. Shanisa Fletcher will tell you about that. And if you're thinking of starting your own small business, listen to what Michelle McClemont has to say before you take that important next step. Yes, this is Brooklyn 45, and if you are one of the 124,000 persons who live in the Crown Heights and East Flatbush section of Brooklyn, you've probably seen this lady, my first guest. Welcome to Brooklyn 45, Diane Richardson.
Thank you so much for having me this evening.
This has been a rush for you, I guess, because it's a special election. Why is this a special election for people who don't know?
Well, the former Assembly member, Kareem Kamara, got a new position with Governor Cuomo doing faith-based initiatives for the entire state of New York, causing a special election in the 43rd Assembly District.
Why are you running for this office?
I'm running because now is the time. I mean, I'm a direct product of this community. I was born there, raised there, educated there, and as I love to tell people, I'm not going anywhere. And our community is facing a multitude of issues, many of the struggles in which I've gone through myself. I was a young mother. I had to put myself through college, and it really was not easy. It was not easy, and it's not easy for many people living in the district. We are facing a housing crisis right now as we speak, and the needs are just growing day by day by day. So, I'm going to take my professional experience of working as constituent affairs in the New York State Senate, and I'm going to take my professional experiences and my personal experiences, and I'm going to carry the spirit of the community with me to Albany to fight for the things that we need the most.
How do you get this community to come out and vote?
Well, we have to engage the community. Community inclusion is a top priority for me. And this is really about getting the word out, going to each house and knocking on the doors and letting them know that there's a special election, being in the community day by day, and just getting the word out that there is a special election. That means trains, that means churches, that means a very visible campaign.
What are the major concerns of people who you've spoken to in your community?
The number one concern is housing. The number one concern is housing. We are seeing an influx of people moving into the community, and as a result, the rents are going up. And the same people who helped to build the community are losing their homes day by day.
How do you fix that?
We really need to restructure the housing laws. The housing laws are going to expire on June 15th. So when I get to Albany, I'm going to hit the ground running to tackle that issue. And we have to we have to create new housing. But this has to be done with an incentive for developers to build, but also it has to be true affordable housing, true low-income housing. We have to have senior housing. We have to address the housing needs that are in the community. And one way that we can really do that is by reforming 421A, because that is a major tax break that developers are getting, 80-20, but the 20% of the housing that's left to be affordable is not truly affordable. They're using the AMI, the area median income of New York City, which is $75,000. But the AMI in the 43rd Assembly District is roughly $45,000. So this affordable housing is not truly affordable for this community. We need to cut those red tapes and break those barriers.
How do you break the barriers?
By caucusing with, all the elected officials in Albany, developing a new housing plan, as well as working with coalition groups in the city, and really coming to the table, rolling our sleeves up, and developing a housing plan that is bringing a solution to our problems.
You got some pretty powerful support. Working Families Party for one, and then you've got some elected officials. Who are they?
Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, Senator Kevin Parker, Assemblywoman Rodneyce Bichat, Assemblywoman Latrice Walker, but I've picked up some endorsements by some unions, DC 37, 32BJ, TWU Local 100, the first union to come out and endorse me, UAW, the Hopper PAC, Higher Education PAC.
How do you feel about your chances of winning?
I feel really awesome. I feel really awesome.
I can see it on your face. What is the Working Families Party doing for you?
The Working Families Party is fully invested, and they're bringing all of their knowledge, all of their data, all of their brain trust in this race.
Youth. What are you going to do for the young people? There are so many incidents and so many issues in your community and in surrounding East Flatbush communities. What are you doing for the young people?
Well, I currently work for a juvenile justice organization dealing with youth in the juvenile justice system. And so I'm in touch with youth on a daily basis. And what I really think we need to do is bridge the gap between the youth and the community and create a pathway for them to become involved. So I'm very elated about creating a youth council where the youth can come and get involved in the community and voice their concerns and bring it to us from their perspective.
Let's talk about your experience, not just in youth, but in other areas that will be occupying your attention. What are some of these major areas as you see them?
Housing to the forefront, of course.
Yes.
Education. I'm 100% supporting the campaign for fiscal equity so that our public schools are funded at the levels that they deserve. I'm going to definitely support paid family sick leave, the women's equality agenda, to name a few.
So you're looking at your role not just as representing the Crown Heights and East Flatbush area, but as a New York Assembly person.
Yes.
Are you ready for this?
I was born ready.
Okay. Of course, having the support of so many Assembly persons helps as well, does it?
It does.
Now, how does that help you?
It does. They're constantly advising me, not just on the campaign trail, but giving me real-time information as to things that are happening in Albany, new developments, getting me prepared for the different pieces of legislation, keeping me well informed and advised.
What are some of the healthcare issues in your community that you're concerned about?
Well, I am very concerned about the hospital closures and the threats that were made to the hospitals in our area. Downstate Hospital was one of the hospitals that came under attack. And we just need pathways to health care. We need increased amount of, we have a very large immigrant population in our community. And health care is a right, and they deserve health care too. So we have to create pathways so that everyone in the community has access to quality health care and preventative care.
What is one other burning issue that you consider to be important?
Raising the minimum wage.
You have support for that?
Much support for that.
What is some of that
The
support?
Community will support me on that.
Yes, but how do you get beyond the community to other elected officials and to business places?
Listen, the minimum wage right now is not lock in step with inflation. We have a saying, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well, we're at the point where we're robbing Peter twice and Paul still can't get paid. Everything is going up, but our paycheck is not. So getting the community to support me in this endeavor is not going to be hard. But this isn't a fight that I started. It is one that is already where the ball is rolling on this. Several unions are involved in this. There's a lot of movements around this. So the support will be mounting not only in the 43rd Assembly District, but all across New York City and state.
Diane Richardson running for Assemblywoman in the 43rd Assembly District. When is the election?
The election is Tuesday, May 5th, and I will be on the Working Families Party line.
Okay. One final question. You've got 76,000 registered voters. How do you really get them to come out to vote? People don't come out to vote in a lot of communities in East Flatbush. How do you get them out?
This is really about raising community awareness. Usually in a special election, it is said that voter turnout is low. However, again, running a very high impact campaign, knocking on doors, speaking at public engagement. I'm at churches every Saturday and Sunday, raising awareness. I am calling voters. I am using social media. I am ringing every alarm possible to get the community out, and they will be out.
Good luck, Diane Richardson, running for State Assemblywoman in the 43rd District. And I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And now, you see me doing this sometimes. I guess I need some wet wipes. Is that correct, Shanisha Fletcher?
It's been one of those long days, but you would like to go out for drinks right after work. So you carry a little pack of wet wipes in your purse to have a quick bird bath. I've done that. But do you know that for every wet wipe you flush, the city pays over $18 million in removal fees? The New York City Deputy Commissioner of Environmental Protection says those wipes are indestructible. I guess that's the purpose. However, the equipment needed to dispose of those wipes has doubled since 2008 due to the increase in wet wipe usage. Removing them from the New York sewage system is more of a problem than we imagined from such soft cleanliness. Dark clumps reign supreme in the New York sewage system, and as they make their way through the pipes, they gain mass along the way, ending in big black snowballs. The labels on many of the packages say that they are indeed flushable, while other labels say do not flush. Not only does flushing wet wipes cost the city money, but they cost you money as well. An example, increase in water rates. To prevent any unflushable wipes clogging up the New York sewage system, there is now a bill that removes all flushable labels from wet wipe products unless they've gone through third-party testing. So before you flush those wet wipes, be sure to check for the flushable stamp. I'm Shanisha Fletcher. Visit our Facebook page and send me your comments.
Thank you, Shanisha. My next guest has seen and experienced terror. She escaped from that terror at age 16, but has not turned her back on the people she left behind or the country she calls home. Magdella Cooper, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor.
What do you feel when you look back to when you left Liberia at age 16? What do you feel now?
Well, now I feel more empowered than I ever have. But when I look back at that 16-year-old girl that sort of left that tragedy, I feel nothing but just, I guess in a sense, pity for her because everything was lost. The life that I once had was all shattered. It was just complete chaos around me. So,
what was that tragedy?
Well, we had a pretty decent, lifestyle in Liberia, a small West African country of then I guess was 3 million people. Now it's about 4. Decent and normal lifestyle, but then there was a civil conflict, political instability that sort of came upon us, and there was civil war in 1990 that just completely destroyed the entire country, our infrastructure, our political life, our economy, everything was destroyed.
Now, before the interview began, you were telling me that you just came back from Liberia.
Yes, I did. I went 6 months after the Ebola outbreak, went back to get our children into school because I run a educational project in Liberia for orphans and abandoned children and kids who pretty much cannot afford to pay their tuition into private schools. Because we don't have too many public schools anymore since the civil crisis. And so I managed to get some friends together. We built a private school, a boarding school for children who cannot afford to pay their way through schools. And when the Ebola outbreak took place, the president asked that we close every facility down. And for these children, it was their permanent home as well. It was not just a school. And so we had to put them in foster homes and different, just sort of in villages and with families who could care for them. After 6 months, we finally got the clearance to put the children back in school.
You've done so much since coming to the United States. Tell us about this. I know you have your own foundation.
Yes.
Tell us about the journey.
The journey has been long. I came to this country at 16 years old, arrived in Newark, New Jersey, just out of a civil war, made my way through high school, got an academic scholarship, went to the College of New Jersey. Right after college, I took a job in the fashion industry But while I was in the fashion industry, I loved it. It was everything I wanted to do. Post my dark, sort of period coming from a civil conflict, I wanted to go into this world of beauty and just everything gorgeous.
I can see that.
Thank you. Thank you. And that was a short-lived sort of interest. While I was in the fashion industry, I just couldn't help but to think about my family back home.
Yes.
I just couldn't erase that memory of what was, just the good life I had prior to the Civil War. And so when the war was over and a peace agreement was signed in 2004, I decided, okay, this is it for me for, living for myself. I'm now going to dedicate my time to helping restructure my country after the war.
So how did you start this foundation? How did you establish relationships between here and Liberia? How did you get this all together?
Well, I'm a daring person. I always take risks. I always go for what I believe in. And I strongly believe this had to be done. I had no idea how I was going to do it. I needed to help women and children going back home to Liberia, coming back from refugee camps in the bordering countries. And I knew they were going home to nothing. I knew there was a problem, and I needed to find a solution. I didn't know the steps to take towards starting a foundation. So I researched a lot of other foundations. I talked to people who had foundations. And at the time, in 2003, there was a lot of old families that had these foundations, these big, wealthy families. I was just a young woman working in the fashion industry. I didn't have
took
millions.
You seriously.
They didn't take me seriously at the time, but I started where I needed to start. I started with the friends and people who knew me and cared for me. Mm-hmm. So I went to them and told them, I'm from Liberia, I came here, and now it's my time to give back. And so those friends believed in me, and they helped because of me.
How much money did you have to raise to be able to set up these schools back in Liberia?
When I first got started, my interest was not to raise money. First of all, I didn't even understand I needed a lot of money to do this. I wanted to help, and that was my focus. And so I started by sending care packages to refugees returning home. Then some friends came up to me and said, I want to make a donation, a financial donation. Do you have a 501c3? The first friend wrote me a check for $5,000, and I will never forget that. And he said, Mac, I need a tax receipt. And so I had to go back and research what 501c3 was. And eventually signed up for it and got the tax exemption status from the U.S. government, and we started operating as an official foundation. But we started doing fundraisers. We raised a lot of money. Between 2004 to 2008, when the economy was booming, we raised a lot of money. I would say probably close to $1 million or so. And that was something that I didn't expect to do. But I realized that we needed funds to execute this dream we had. In 2008, we realized the children we were supporting needed a permanent home because we were paying their tuition at different schools around the country. But because in Liberia,
yes.
Absolutely. Because of the heavy rain season, it rains for 6 months straight. A lot of these children could not make their way to the schoolhouses. So they were missing days. A lot of them were sick. They didn't have money to go to get health care or access to health care. And so we realized, okay, we're helping children. We're helping to educate them. But now they're having all these problems. So it made sense for us to build an institution that would house them and provide their 4 basic human rights, which was access to education, access to shelter, access to health care, and nutrition. So we started feeding them 3 times a day. We provided nurses on campus and doctors who would come and visit them. We gave them access to free education, and the dorm serve as their home.
As you said earlier, you just came back from Liberia.
Yeah.
When you looked at these kids, did you see yourself in any of them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was the first thing that really caught me because I thought I was spared. I was saved from the war. I wasn't harmed. I wasn't raped like many young girls my age were raped during the war. They were used as sex slaves. I actually, was one of the lucky few that left physically untouched. There were so many emotional scars going on inside of me. But when I took my first trip in 2005 and met the children for the first time, I remember we had a Christmas party, and we lined up the children, the shortest to the tallest. The first gift we had given to a little girl, she came to me and said, "Who is this for?" And I said, "This is for you." We were so happy, these New Yorkers came, brought this gift. The little girl said to me, "But what do I have to do for it?" And that really broke my heart because I thought, how many times have she gotten something, a kind, gesture given to her, but she had to return a favor for it.
What kind of favors?
I have no idea, but for the little girl to ask, what do I have to do for it, that really touched my heart.
I was going to ask you this question later, but since you brought it up now, I'm going to ask it now. You talk about running the country tomorrow.
Yeah.
People speak so highly of you.
Oh.
And they talk about your probably being a future leader of Liberia. Do you see that in yourself?
You know, politics is not my thing. It's not my focus. But I feel I can do a lot for Liberia, in whatever way, whatever platform that will give me, sort of leverage to do that. I'm happy to. But what I'm dreaming about being a president, no, it's not. It's not my no.
No.
No, no, it's not my interest right now.
Let's talk about the education that you're providing for the youngsters in Liberia. What is their response to education?
The young people, that's all they want. Believe it or not, they're starving. They have sometimes no home. They have no parents to care for them. But the first thing they will ask you for is not a new pair of Nikes or the latest video game. They're asking you, can you help me with my education? They know that's the path to a good future, to a better future. And that's the first thing coming from New York. You would think they would ask me to bring them something else. They asked me, Miss Cooper, can you help me obtain an education?
What is this about they're not having any parents? We don't have that experience here. They don't have parents?
A lot of the children, because the poverty rate is so high in the country, a lot of the families cannot afford to care for their children, so they leave them behind. Prior to the civil conflict, they will leave them with an uncle, or aunt, or grandmother. Now the grandmothers and uncles and aunts don't want the children because they also have their own responsibility. There are no jobs for people, so who wants to care for children? So a lot of children are left behind to fend for themselves. Yeah.
Let's talk about your foundation.
Yes.
So what are you doing now?
Now we're working to expand the school. We see there's a need for an institution such as the one we've established, the model we've built. Take these kids who are left behind, put them in a safe and secure environment, in a school, provide their basic needs, and educate them, so they're not hustling on the street and trying to also obtain an education. And so we've done it. We have 100+ kids in this particular school because we take smaller children and grow them into the school. We take them at 4, and because when you leave the child outside of our grounds, there's a chance that if they don't have the tuition, they will not return to school. We want to keep them consistent. And the kids who've aged out of traditional schooling, we put them in a training process, a training program, to prepare them for a job so they can sustain themselves. So we sort of broke up the model, took the ones who are untainted, who can still go through a traditional school process. We keep them in the school. The ones who are not able to, we put them in a training program.
You left during a period of turmoil.
Yes.
Does that still exist?
The turmoil has stopped. The civil crisis have stopped. But we have a series of problems that we're still facing. Since the Civil War, we luckily elected the first female president on the continent of Africa. She's done a great job building roads, rebuilding the infrastructure, sort of helping to rebuild the economy of the country. But there is still a lot of work to be done. There is still so much to be done.
Did you feel disadvantaged as a black woman once you had come here? You came to New Jersey. And I know you operate between New Jersey and New York City. Mm-hmm. Have you felt a bit disadvantaged as a young black woman?
Absolutely. I came here, and because of our economic status at the time, I went to one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in New Jersey. And I went to school. I was, sort of surrounded by Hispanics and blacks in my school. And when I went to college, I was in a different world. There weren't a lot of black women in this college. There were a handful of students that were of African descent, and so I was automatically put into a certain program to prepare young blacks for college. And I just try to always look and make the best out of every situation. I thought to myself, okay, I'm the only one mostly in this environment, so I'm going to try to make the best of it. And that's what I did through my college years.
You have a great website. How do people access your website?
www.magdellacooper.org, and Magdella is spelled Macdella.
What's next for you?
What's next for me?
You said it's not going to be the president of Liberia. What's next?
I'm waiting for the universe to tell me that. I'm open.
You have no idea?
No.
How do you feel about your foundation?
The foundation, I'm trying to grow it to do more good things in Africa. We need people who can come on board and help rebuild Africa. My focus now is to call as many Africans home, or those who call themselves of African descent. I'm calling a lot of us home to go back and build the African infrastructure and economy and systems.
I want to congratulate you on your strength, your vision, and your accomplishments.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I hope that our viewers are going to give you a call. And that they'll help you do the work that is necessary in Liberia to help those kids that you've been helping.
Yes.
Thank you for being our guest on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And next, if you're planning to start a business, you won't believe it, but Michelle McClymont has some very interesting, purposeful, and useful information for you. Michelle?
Choosing a business location is perhaps the most important decision you'll make if you're planning to start your own business. It requires precise planning and research. It involves looking at data, assessing who will provide your supplies, scoping out the competition, staying on budget, understanding state laws and taxes, and so much more. Most businesses choose a location that will give them exposure to possible customers. And you should too if you're planning to start your own business. Here are 6 key factors to consider. Number 1, brand image. Is the location consistent with the image you want to maintain? Number 2, who is your competition? Are the businesses around you complementary or competing? Number 3, what's your local labor market? In other words, does the area where you plan to start your business have potential employees? What will their commute be like? If you anticipate further growth, look for a building that has extra space should you need it. Number 4, what is your proximity to suppliers? They need to be able to find you easily as well. 5 is safety. Consider the crime rate where your business will be located. Will your employees feel safe alone in the building or when they're walking to their vehicles? And here's one more thing to consider. You must be aware of these things. These determine whether you can conduct your type of business in certain properties or locations. So before you start up your business, choosing a location is important. I hope the key factors I gave you are helpful. We'll be posting this on the website and on the Brooklyn 45 website.
Our Brooklyn 45 team would love to hear from you. Your comments about this program, any new topics that you'd like us to discuss, any other suggestions you have. Brooklyn 45 is your information television program, and you are important to us. Send us an email at that'sinfo@brooklyn45.com or send us a Facebook message at facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. That's facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. Please also visit our Facebook page and like us. This is Brooklyn 45. Watch us next week, 9 a.m. and 8 a.m. on this channel.